All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. I am Kendra Tillman. I am the founder of Strong Her Me Coaching and Consulting. And I just want to welcome you as we close out 2024. We are going to give you one of the most powerful tools that you can use to start 2025 with clarity and purpose for your very own year in review. And I am so excited to have you be a part of this, whether you are going to be watching us live or you're going to watch this later on the replay. I would love for you to share where you're watching from and who you are and what you are hoping and expecting to gain from being a part of this and listening in with us. I hope that you will be an active participant because we have so much to share with you. And I am excited because this is something that I used to do on an annual basis. I think I skipped last year. I think that's the only year that I skipped. Last year, I came to the end of the year and I was like, you know what? I don't have anything else to give. Y'all go watch the replay from the previous year. But this year, I'm feeling more energized. I'm feeling, I have more expectation, and I wanted to be able to get this going again. And whenever I do the year in review, if you have never watched or been a part of our year in review, I love to have my friend and fellow coach Isha Cogborn join me for this, because she is one of the wisest women that I know. She is a very talented and gifted coach herself. And so I thought that it would be great to have this conversation with her. So you all are getting not one, but two executive coaches who are here to support you as you begin to look forward for your new year. So welcome to our time together, Aisha.
Thank you, Kendra. I tell you, I missed last year so much, us not doing this, and I just watched the recording. I was like, oh. And so when you texted me and said it's on, I was ready and excited. So glad to be here.
I know, and I've been laughing. I've been watching these different videos, like on Instagram, about people that work in an office where they have other people, and people are like, "Oh, at this point in the year, let's table that for January, or we'll circle back to that in January." Right. So I've been laughing at people making those jokes. So, you and I are entrepreneurs, right? So we get to decide when our last day is going to be in the office. So do you have any of those feelings of, or even just responding to clients or emails and telling people, you know what, let's circle back to that in January.
Well, I'll tell you, this year has been a little different, and we'll talk about that. Where I still have some energy in the tank to get me through the end of the year, but last year, I was pretty much done like by the second week, maybe of December. Might have been the first week. Like December was a wash. Like I already knew it, didn't schedule anything, wasn't really planning to do much. So, but I got a little left in the tank right now.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel. I have a little left in the tank, and I'm gonna talk about why in just a second. But I want to talk a little bit about, just to those of you who are watching together. We've seen how Aisha and I have seen how taking the time to reflect, to remember, and reset can completely shift how you approach a new year. So we want you to grab your journal. Hopefully you downloaded your guide. I'm actually going to put the link to the guide in the comments so that you can grab that if you haven't already. That requires, it does not require that you give us an email for that, because I just want you to grab it. And then we're going to pause and we're going to honor everything this year has held for us, whether it's our wins, our losses, those unexpected blessings that we have. So this is your moment to catch your breath, to look ahead with intention. So I just want you to pause and give yourself the time to take a breath with intention. And so I'm going to drop that in the comments. So Aisha, I would love for you, as I'm doing that, I would love for you to go ahead and share with them who you are and anything that you feel is important for them to know as we start this conversation.
Yes. Well, my name is Isha Cogborn. I have been an entrepreneur for it will be gosh, 17 years, 16 years. I want to say 17 years in January. That sounds a little
Wow.
crazy, but I think it truly is. I'm the founder of Epiphany Institute. We are a professional development company that really works with people to make their greatest impact. And I'm really excited because in the coming year, in 2025, we're going to be doing a lot to focus on late career employees, folks like us who have been in the game for a while, who got a few little grades up here and have some wisdom to bring to the table. But sometimes we feel like that wisdom and that experience isn't valued, like we're getting pushed out of the door. For those of us who may be just starting businesses, it can be a bit challenging because we're used to knowing how to get everything done, and then all of a sudden we're newbies again and we're figuring everything out. And so we're really creating development experiences that will help you to work through some of those challenges, to really recognize and honor who you are, and to be able to pass along that wisdom, that brilliance, that experience to others who desperately need it right now.
Hmm. Yeah, we have seen this year there has been so many layoffs.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that part of what caused you to want to support those people, or what was the catalyst for you making this decision to pivot into this right now?
So really looking at the numbers right now, the civilian workforce in the United States is almost 40% of the workforce is 55 and older.
Mm,
And so you've got a number of different things happening. So you've got a whole bunch of jobs that are open that can't
mhm,
be filled, yet you've got a huge segment, almost half of the workforce, that could be exiting at any given time.
mhm,
I had a coworker one time that told me he was retirement eligible, had all his points, and he told me if I have 3 bad days in a row, I'm out of here.
mm,
So,
mhm,
and for people that know that, yeah, I can leave at any time. There are organizations that are like, but no, don't leave. We need you. And then at the same time, there are organizations that are looking at their bottom line. And it's like, look, you've been here for 30 years. You got 2 months of vacation. We pay you a whole lot. And we got to make some tough decisions. And, we can bring somebody else in who's younger, who they
mhm.
are not going to do it the way you do it, but we can't afford to keep you.
Yeah.
And so trying to figure out how do we solve problems, both for organizations that are figuring out how do we still succeed, because there are folks that have different wants and needs. Even if you look at where we are at this stage in life, there are just different things that are important to us. You may be in corporate and you may feel like, I'm not trying to hit the C-suite. I'm not looking for another promotion. I just want you to continue to pay me, respect me, and just leave me alone. Let me do what I do. But then on the personal side, you may want to travel more. You may want to volunteer more, spend time with your grandkids. You may be caring for a spouse. You may be having health issues yourself. And so all of these things affect the way that we look at work. And so if we're, looking at it from a standpoint of professional development, personal development, the
Mhm,
conversation needs to be shifting. The same
mhm.
thing that a 25-year-old in their first role out of college, what they need is very different than somebody who's 55 who's been with the company for 32 years. So we
Yeah,
want to
so
address that need.
that is so true. I mean, it's so different when I think about so my husband spent 30 years in corporate America. So he started as an intern
Mhm.
and he ended that career in back at the end of March of working there. And it's a different world out here. It's a very different world. And I would say when you have reached that level of maturity as well, then there is a lot of self exploration that you do when you reach this stage, even when you are someone who has been actively staying engaged in not just being solely focused on your corporate career, but you have had other interests. It's still a game changer because you are changing so much of your life in when you leave behind this corporate career. And so I feel like the support that you're going to provide, especially you, I mean, just the level of experience that you have, the level of um, honor and respect that you show your clients, I think that is so powerful and valuable to have someone that can walk with you through that process of transition, right? And being able to um, deal with a lot of the stuff internally that
Yes.
you're gonna face.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. That, I mean, that's such a big piece of it, because it's not, so if we're talking about, like, I have a lot of clients that will come to me, and they're maybe a couple years out from retirement, and they say, okay, I want to start consulting. I want to start
Mhm,
speaking or training, and I don't know how to do this. Anybody can give you the skills, the technical
mhm.
expertise to do that. But to be able to understand what that emotional journey feels like, and the frustration that
Yes,
you're going to deal with being
yes.
at this stage of life. I know that we are uniquely equipped to be able to serve people because we get that part of it. And it
Mhm.
isn't just here, go watch a course online and figure it out, but to really
Yeah.
be able to walk with you, and to cheer you on, and to let you know that those frustrations you're feeling are normal. If you maybe were kind of pushed out of the door before you were ready, to understand you are not a failure, to know that you can go off and you're equipped to do wonderful things, even if it looks different. And
Mhm.
there's a lot of internal work that comes with it too.
Absolutely. Yeah, so you actually are equipping people with not just the skill that they need in order to, because it's a skill, like the whole process of going back out and figuring this out, and it's a skill. I
Mhm.
just know it's a skill, right? But then also the work that you have to do on yourself so that you have the courage to
Yeah.
take those steps and to make those decisions. And you know, the to me, even like as I'm thinking about our year in review, the reason, the value of doing a year in review is the reflection that you are doing as you are looking back, and you are taking your focus away from everything that you wish you had done, what you wish was different, what, I didn't expect this and I didn't expect that, but you are looking at how far you have actually come. And I always use the analogy of when I was running half marathons. I have not done that in a long time. One of the approaches that I had was not to focus on how far I had to go, because that felt very discouraging. What
Mhm.
I focused on was how far I have come, the fact that I'm still here, that I'm still going. And so, as you sit down to do your year in review, that is one of the things that we really want to encourage you to do, is shift your focus away from how far you have to go. Right? I didn't hit this goal. That didn't happen. This thing that I wanted didn't show up, but we're going to focus on how far have you come. Here you are in December. We made it. We made it to December, y'all.
Woo!
Right? We made it to December. And let's look how far we've come. So one of the first questions I want to ask is, Aisha, at this point in the year, I think this is similar to what you were going to ask me. We talked about this before. What's a word or a phrase that captures how you're feeling about the end of this year?
Yeah. So it was, the end of this year is so different than what I thought it was gonna be. So if I had to think about kind of a theme or a phrase that
Hmm.
encapsulates this year, it's family first. That's what it's been. It isn't
Mm-hmm.
what I thought it was gonna be, but
Mm-hmm.
that's what it's been, and I'm grateful for it. But, it definitely did not, like, if I pull out my goals from the beginning of this year, and I will tell you at this point, I don't even know where they are, so that lets you know how this year has been. It looked nothing like that, but, it truly has been a year of prioritizing my family, prioritizing, my mother in particular, and my father, to an extent as well, and, just, knowing what's most important in this season and honoring that.
Yeah,
How
yeah.
about you?
So when I think about the word about how I'm feeling at the end of the year is optimistic. I feel very optimistic and hopeful. And it's not because everything has gone amazing this year, because it actually has not. It's just that I've been able to see the fruit of the commitment that I've made, and not in the form of quote results,
Hmm.
but more in the form of I have planted some seeds and I'm starting to see something sprouting up, right? So I don't see the full tree. I don't see all the fruit on the tree, but at least I have a sprout. So I
Yeah,
know that something is happening,
yeah,
right? But I'm definitely not where I would ultimately like to be.
yeah.
Yeah.
You bring up a very good point because this is something that I struggle with. And I don't know if I call it struggle, it's just being unrealistic. I often have unrealistic expectations, number one, about how much I can accomplish
Yeah.
in a given 12 months, and
Hmm.
then how long it's going to take, how much effort it's going to take, how many hours it's going to take, even just to get a single thing done. I'll have something on my to-do list. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll knock that out in 3 hours. And
Hmm.
it takes me 3 days.
Hmm.
And then you expect, okay, well, I'm gonna, and I see this a lot with my clients initially, and so they'll come to me and they're frustrated because they're like, hey, I've been out here and I started this podcast, or I wrote this book, or I'm showing up and people just aren't responding. I thought if I just showed up online 3 times, I'd have a full coaching practice by now. Like, what's going
Hmm.
on? What's wrong with these
Hmm.
people? And have to just back up those expectations and realize that it takes time. And if you have unrealistic expectations, you will be frustrated because you will think there's something wrong with me. Why isn't this working? Maybe I'm not supposed to be doing this, but it's just really that your expectations just off. You just got to keep at it. And it takes people, and it takes even longer now. And here's the thing, because you may be talking to somebody that is telling you, oh, well, when I did this, I here was my formula I followed, and they're telling you what they did 5 years ago or 10 years ago. It's a completely different landscape now. There are more people that are doing the same thing. We're more bombarded than we ever have been. And so being able to replicate the results of something you did 10 years ago or somebody else did 10 years ago today is not going to look the same. And so you've got to understand what it looks like in today's market with today's tools, with today's competition. And I don't say competition like it's a bad thing. It's just there are more solutions that people have available to them. And I'm speaking, from a business standpoint. But if you're doing that, then you've got to know, all right, I might have been expecting these results in 3 months, but it may take a full year, and to be okay with that and to celebrate that progress as it happens. And that's one of the things that this process, this year in review, really allows us to do. Look at those small incremental wins that you might have not have thought were a big deal.
Yeah, that's so good. What are your expectations and what are those small incremental wins? I think that we underestimate the power of the small incremental wins,
Hmm.
right? Because we are always looking for the big splash. We're looking for the excitement but we underestimate just that small over time. It builds, but because that's not necessarily the pace that we want to be living at, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Right, so it's easy to underestimate it. Sheila says she's grateful to keep keeping on. Yes, yes.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
You got another year, you got another opportunity to keep moving forward, so that's awesome. um so then what do you, when you think about a year in review, Aisha, what would you say the reason this matters?
Depending on how you're wired, but most of us have a tendency to, and you alluded to this, focus on what didn't happen. And so, you've got to, even if you're just looking at it from a pure data standpoint. If
Mhm.
anything that we're doing, we want to look at the data and figure out what's working and what's not working. And so
Mhm.
when we do our year in review, it allows us to be able to take that step back and say, okay, here's what I wanted. Here are the things that worked. Here are the things that didn't work. And so you can take that data into the next year and make the adjustments you need to make. Because sometimes we'll just keep doing the same thing for another 12 months. And now you have another 12 months of not getting the
Mhm.
results that you want because you didn't possess that level of self awareness to figure out what was working and what wasn't working.
Mhm. So true. Um, one of the things that I wanted to ask you about was you mentioned to me that because of your background, you have learned how to put a positive spin on things. So talk about that a little bit in relation
Oh,
to what
yeah.
you just shared.
Yes. So I spent a career in corporate communications, PR, and
Mhm.
so it is all about framing
Mhm.
whenever we are looking at a situation. And so I'm very good at framing, and so I can come out of the year and go through this process and say, well, I didn't achieve any of my goals, but here are the things that happened and blah 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 blah, and it can come out of it feeling good. And I was
Mhm.
saying to you, I don't know if that's good or if it's bad. It's good because at least I'm able to come into the next year feeling good, feeling optimistic, feeling hopeful, not beating myself up or feeling like a failure. But at the same time, I have to be able to be honest with myself and say, okay, yep, life, these situations happen in life that caused this shift. And yes, that affected your capacity, your energy levels, all of that. However, if you had better processes in place, if
Mhm.
you had better
Mhm.
personal disciplines and
Mhm.
routines in place, even
Mhm.
when all these unexpected things happened, it may not have had the effect on you that it did. And
Mhm.
so being able to be honest with myself, not beat myself up, but be honest with myself about that, then I can say, okay, so what needs to change in the coming year? I need to make sure that I have my personal disciplines and routines in place. I need to have better work processes, not just in place, but actually operating. Because there's
Mhm.
a difference. You may have the process in place, but are you actually working the process? So to
Mhm.
actually work the process and to ensure that I'm doing those things, having and you know this about me, other people that if you're connected with me, I have an ADHD brain, so that may make it more challenging for me than some others to kind of have some consistent routines. But at the same time, it equips me to be able to do some other things. So I don't use it as an excuse. It just is what it is. So own the way you're wired and figure out what you need to do about it. And so I know for me, when it comes down to building a routine, I need as many kind of external tent poles, I guess you can
Mhm.
say, that
Mhm.
will anchor those routines as I can. It can't just be based on me having willpower and getting up and doing something. There's got to be some things externally that help to keep that in check. So, one of the things as I look at, my plan for 2025, I need to make sure that, one of the things that our company does is we do weekly accountability calls with Hugo Vasquez. Shout out to Hugo. He does
Yes.
those calls every Monday morning. I need to be on those weekly accountability calls because it's going to make me set my goals weekly, and I've got to show up and I've got to say, did you do it or did you not do it? And I'm not going to show up too many weeks saying I didn't do it
Mhm.
because my little ego is not going to let me show up too many weeks and say I didn't do it. I'm just being honest.
Right. Right.
So I'm gonna do it. That external accountability will help. So, just understanding what are those things that I need. And so, to those of you who may be watching as you go through this process, and you may see that there have been some things out of your control that affected the year, there are always going to be things that are going to happen out of our control. So what are some things in your control that you can put in place proactively that will allow you to have more of the results that you want, whether it's in your personal or your professional life?
Mm. So what are some of the things that you can't within your control that you can put in place
Yep.
to help you achieve those goals?
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So like I became a full-time caregiver to my mother this year. I moved from Arizona to Michigan and we moved in together, and that became a big part of my life. And initially I was just kind of at the mercy of what time is mama going to get up this morning? And then, we start the morning routine where I needed to be more regimented about this is what time I get up, this is what time I start working, et cetera, et cetera. And so one of the things that I could have done was to put that routine in place and to be able to say, all right, I wake her up at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. She might not like it, but she'll get used to it. But that'll allow me to have a more predictable schedule. So, there are always things that we can do.
Yes.
May not have everything the way you want it, but there's always something you can do.
Yeah. Two of the takeaways that I'm from what you have already shared is one of them you said own the way that you're wired.
Hmm.
So one of the things in terms of your year in review is being honest about this is who I am.
Hmm.
And especially if you see a pattern from year to year to year, we keep trying to change who we are rather than how can I lean into this to actually get what it is that I need from it.
Yep.
Right. So
Yep.
like that. So that's something for you to be thinking about as we're gonna walk through the guide in just a second. And if you have been hesitant about taking the time to do this and you've been hesitant about actually writing goals for 2025 because you feel disappointed because it seems like I'm going from year to year to year and nothing feels like it's changing. Well, are you also trying to go against
Yeah.
how you have been wired?
Yep.
And based off of what you know about yourself, what based
Hmm.
on from what Aisha was saying, how can you put something in place that helps support you in ways that you don't naturally operate?
Hmm.
Okay. So that's one thought that I want to leave everybody with. The other thing is there's a big part of this, the year in review is really about evaluating and taking a look at who am I and these goals that I've set for myself. I want to do an evaluation as a form of accountability,
Hmm.
right? I personally have experienced from that accountability is valuable, but it's also painful sometimes. And it also can feel um, disappointing at times when you look at what you actually did in comparison to what you said that you wanted to do.
Yeah.
But I think that we can shift how we're thinking about accountability as it's basically just like helps you notice what you would like to do different,
Yeah.
right? It's helping you say, oh, I did this really well, but I wish I had done more of this.
Yep.
And I think that a big part of why we feel that disappointment around goal setting is because of what you mentioned before about the expectations, because we're expecting you put this on paper, you write this down, and I'm going to go from here to here, right? I said I wanted to accomplish it in January. By December it's done. But you don't know about all the process that happens in between the time you set the goal and the time you actually reach the destination. And then sometimes the process that you go through helps you realize, you know what, that wasn't even really what I wanted. I really wanted this, or it's not what I needed. I really needed this.
Yep.
So what are you thinking about that? Because I saw you point at me just now. So
So we do quarterly planning retreats. In fact, we're
Mhm.
doing one first Saturday in January. And one of the things that I emphasize when I'm working with people on setting their goals is understanding how to set the right goal.
Yes.
And that could be based on the stage that you're in right now. Like if you are just exploring the idea of, say, starting a business, or making a career change. You're
That's it.
just starting to explore it. You don't even know a whole lot about it yet. But you set the goal that, by the end of the year, my business is going to be earning, 6 figures of profit, blah, blah, blah. And you literally have not even started the business yet, or have a strategy or anything clear. That's probably not the right goal to set.
Mhm.
Let's back it up a little bit, and maybe we focus just on more of the incremental goals. And so maybe the goal for the first quarter is around exploration. And the goal is, by the end of the first quarter, I would have figured these things out to the
Mhm.
point that I can then make that next step. If I'm looking to make a career change, then the goal isn't focused on, okay, I'm going to be in this job and making, X amount of money by the end of this period. Maybe that first goal that we're just looking at for the first quarter is, I'm going to focus on my professional network, and really nurturing my network, so I understand what opportunities may be coming up. So I understand what the needs are in the marketplace, because maybe they've shifted, or I'm going into something different. Doing things to understand how to position myself for the role that I want. And maybe the initial goals are around that
Mhm.
instead of the outcome,
Mhm.
because you may not be able to control that final thing. Did I get the job or not? Did I, make $350,000 this year in the business that I haven't even started, or not? But you can control, I did these things.
Mhm.
And so if you set the goals based on things that you have a reasonable level of control over, and they are appropriate for the stage that you're in the process, you're much more likely to get the results that you want.
Totally agree. That honestly, that was a game changer for me because there are so many things that I didn't have control over whether or not it happened. And that was how I was setting my goals. It was
Mhm.
all based off of all these factors that I have no control over whatsoever. But I
Yep,
do have control over if I call this many people, if I
yep,
connect with this person, if I bring these people into my circle and I spend more time with them and I learn from them. Those are things I can control. And I think that when I stopped making my goals around what I couldn't control, then I started to actually see some progress.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And that completely changes how you feel about your accomplishment.
Hmm.
Because if you are putting in all this effort, and you feel like you're doing all of the right things, and you're still not seeing the results you want, then that'll make you want to just say, forget it. All right, yep, I'm not setting goals just next year. And then back to kind of this reframing, we can get
Hmm.
real spiritual with it too. We can say, well,
Yeah.
I just want what God wants for me. And so
Yes.
I'm just completely putting it all in his hands.
Hmm.
Whatever he wants from me, it will come to me. Now you just being lazy and
Yeah.
scared.
Come
Don't do
on,
that.
Aisha.
I didn't tell you to do that. The word don't tell you to do that. So come
Yes.
on.
Yes.
We got to do
I'm,
better.
and I'm really glad. I'm so glad that you mentioned that because that is an important part of this. That sometimes when we are saying that we're waiting on God, we are really in fear
Mhm.
and we're not taking a step.
Mhm.
And I do believe that there is so much wisdom in timing.
Yes.
Again, there's some things, but we can actually take a step. We can
Yeah.
actually move in a direction and have trust that hey, if you go in the wrong way, God can get you back over here in the right direction.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And if you ended up taking a step in the wrong direction,
Yeah.
it's still data. Again, so if we're looking at from the standpoint of what are the things that I need to learn to get to the result that I want, making a wrong, shift in the wrong direction, making a bad decision, whatever that is, and making an investment maybe you shouldn't have made. It's all data that is going to inform what you do next time. And now you're a little wiser, and you
Yeah.
can make some better decisions. You can set some better goals. You can
Yeah.
have, and you're going to have better outcomes ultimately.
Yes, totally agree. Totally agree with you on that. So glad that you brought that out. So if you have your guide in front of you,
I
again,
do.
I have. Okay, awesome. So, for everyone who is watching, I have already put the link to the guide in the comments. No email required. You click on that link, it'll take you over to Google Drive, and you'll be able to download the guide so you can walk through it with us. And yeah, so let's get into the guide. Let's talk about first of all, let's talk about your wins, Aisha.
Okay.
So, what are three wins that you are most proud of? And you all can start sharing some of your wins in the comments, even just one.
Yeah. So, my three most memorable wins for the year, I mentioned I moved from Arizona to Michigan, take care of my mom. So, number one was finding a home for us that will allow us to be the family hub. We didn't really have a place in our family where we could all comfortably gather for the holidays, or you just kind of dropped in and hung out or whatnot. And now our family is becoming that. Our house is becoming that, and I love that. Number two, actually hosting the family gatherings, because it would be easy to say, this is what I want to do, not doing it. So I've actually been hosting family gatherings. And then the third thing, and this has just happened in the fourth quarter of the year, really plugging into a new business community in this area. When I lived in Arizona, I had a very strong support system when it came to my professional goals.
Mhm.
And when I moved back home, I didn't have that. And so, and I'm just going to shout them out. Velocity, it is a co-working space, an incubator in Sterling Heights, Michigan. They are becoming my new professional family, and I'm grateful to be able to kind of have that grounding there professionally. The same way I want to create that for my family in my home, they have become that for me professionally. So,
Yeah.
how about you, Kendra?
Yeah, I'm so happy to hear that one of your wins was the related to your family and you being closer to them and also being really intentional about I don't as yeah, I want people to come here and but I'm going to make that happen. Like I'm going to do my part to make sure that
Yeah,
that happens. So
yeah,
that is a very big deal. So one of the things that I wrote down for a win that I have is just owning my voice in leadership. I did a lot more videos this year.
you sure did.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That was a big win for me because I have a desire to be very accurate and precise. And it's just a need that I have. I have a need to be accurate and precise.
Mhm.
And so putting videos out with the possibility that somebody is going to find something that I'm saying is wrong, it was a little bit nerve wracking for
Yeah,
me to do that. But I knew that it was important because it's one thing for people to see you posting or writing things on social media. It's another thing for them to hear your voice, see your
yeah,
face, understand your spirit from just you being able to do that. And so I feel like it has made me get really clear too about who am I talking to, and it's helped improve my communication. I am a person who likes to share information and data. And so sometimes people's eyes can start glazing over. When I taught high school, my students would be like, Miss Tillman, too much information, too much information. So it's really helped improve my communication skills. So I'm proud of that win. I would say another important win for me is so my husband and I we lead a marriage ministry together. I also have my business of Strong Her Me coaching and consulting, which is the primary work that I do. And we have over time just gotten really used to always being the person doing all of the work
yeah.
in our businesses.
Mhm.
We do a lot of sweat equity in our businesses, but this year we made a very intentional step of hiring people to help us get the work done. And
Yeah.
maybe that's why I'm at the end of the year and I actually have some energy
Yes.
because I'm not the only one doing all the work in my business.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. What were you about to say about that?
Oh, no, I'm just excited.
Yes, it's a habit. it's a habit that we have formed of always being the person to do everything.
Mhm,
We on social media, we talk a lot about all the hats she wears and as an
mhm,
entrepreneur, and that is very true, and I still wear a lot of hats. But sometimes we're wearing those hats because we don't trust other people to wear the hat, right?
mhm.
And we're not willing to make the investment because there's still a part of us that, if we're honest, we aren't willing to bet on ourselves.
Yeah.
So we're willing to give money to, be educated by someone else, take another coaching program, go
Mhm.
to another event, learn something new. But we're not willing to learn how to be a leader and
Yes.
have people on our team, because that's a skill you have to hone, that you
Yeah.
have to refine. You
Mhm.
have to learn how to lead people if you're going to have people on your team. And so it requires something different from you
Yeah.
as an entrepreneur
Yeah.
to have team members. And so that for me was a really big win. And then on the personal side, the last thing I want to share in terms of this, my third one, is I have stopped panicking over the decisions that my children make.
Thank you.
That is a huge win. Like, I really realized, even as I was preparing for this, how much peace I have, where I trust that God has a plan for their life. There's a timing for their life. They
Yep.
get to have their own journey, they get to walk their own path. And so now, when things happen, decisions are made, I used to go into panic mode. Let me fix this, let me help with that. No, that's,
Yep.
you know what? This is your life. I'm praying for you.
Yep. Yep.
And I trust the timing of your life. I trust
Yeah.
the timing of what God wants to do in your life. So,
Yeah. That's
yeah.
so true. I mean, I have a, you know this, other folks, I have a 29-year-old son. And so, you and I often had those parenting discussions. Like, I learned to let it go a long time ago. And I'll tell
Yeah.
you, one of the things that allowed me to let it go is, number one, when we think about how much we learned from the mistakes that we made
Yes.
and how we are the people that we are capable of doing the things that we do, having the level of resilience that we have because we made mistakes. But
Mhm.
if we try to protect our kids from everything, we're going to raise some little soft, weak people that
Mhm.
can't deal with life. And that's not who we want them to be. Because the real world is going to eat them alive if we don't let them experience a little bit of life and have to figure some things out.
Girl, I can tell you, raising children has been one of the greatest methods of personal development, personal growth, spiritual growth, financial growth.
Yes.
God has used raising children in every single area of my life. And so yeah, I am I'm a better woman for it. So congratulations, Sheila, on hosting your first ever fundraiser. That is such a big deal.
Yes.
I mean, you've been in ministry for a while now, and so to know that you stepped out and you took that bold step, and it was very well executed, by the way. So we just want to congratulate you for that. And anybody else, if you want to share a win in the comments, we would absolutely love to cheer you on. Me and Aisha would love to cheer you on. Um,
Yes.
so Aisha,
Congratulations.
let's talk about the challenges or the lessons. So what challenges shaped you this year, and what did you learn from those challenges?
So making this transition was one of the huge challenges that shaped me. And it was trying to find my footing, because it was like literally I went to bed one day and had one life and woke up the next day and had a completely different life. Everything had changed. And so one of the things and I talked a little bit about this earlier, the lessons that I learned from that is really understanding how important my routines are. One of the biggest lessons that I've learned this year is that my morning routine is non-negotiable. I would do well for a while, getting up in the morning, and ideally what my morning routine looks like. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in a particular order, but I need to get up, I need to pray, I need to journal, I need to meditate, and I need to move my body. And if I do those things, I am going to have an amazing day and I'm going to be ready for whatever the day throws at me. I'm going to have a level of clarity. You know, God always downloads something into my spirit, sometimes little, sometimes big, that is going to help to equip me for my assignment. But when I don't do that, I don't have the benefit that I get from those things. And so, like, I literally, and realizing that I had to write this down. My morning routine is non-negotiable. It is a sticky note. It is going big sticky note. It's going everywhere around my house. It's going in my bedroom. It's going to be in my office. It's going to be everywhere to remind me to, until that becomes like brushing my teeth, like taking a shower. We are not there yet, but I know it may take a while for me to get that level of consistency again, because of the way I'm wired, but I'm not going to give up on it just because it doesn't stick right away.
Yeah, that, and I love that you gave yourself a reminder. Will you talk about that a little bit? Like, you see how much this has impacted you, and yet you still need a reminder for it. Why is that?
And part of that again may go back to my internal wiring.
Hmm.
Um, it is just really hard for me to function consistently. That's
Hmm.
one of the reasons that I started doing like the follow up Friday posts. And I've been doing that for like 17 years because follow up is hard for me. I can know I need to do something, and this is, you know, there's and I don't want to go into this whole ADHD diatribe, but one of the ways ADHD can show up, it isn't always just bouncing all over the place. Sometimes it can show up in just having this level of inactivity that you feel like you don't have any control over. Like you can know you need to do something, and if somebody put a gun to your head, you feel like you just still can't do it. And so it is not easy for me to just say, I need to do this and then do it. But I am not going to use that as a crutch to then just say, well, I give up on a routine. I give up on having a consistent way of being because I know how beneficial it is to me. And so I'm just going to keep trying and keep trying and keep trying until it sticks. And I have reached the point where these things have stuck. And then sometimes something will happen and I get thrown off my routine. Maybe it's travel. Maybe it's, you know, you get sick and you can't do something for a while and then you got to start all over again. But giving myself the grace and the space to get it right. And so initially, if it is all right, I did it 4 out of 7 days. Next week, let's see if we can do 5. I'm gonna try it all 7. But if I hit it 4, I'm gonna call that a win. And next week, if I can get it to 5, we call that a win. And just being able to celebrate the forward progress and not necessarily looking for perfection.
Yeah, I thank you for sharing that, because I think that's so important. As one of, again, this keeps going back to, why are we doing this year in review?
Mhm,
Because as you evaluate, right, you're studying your own life. You're
mhm,
studying your habits, you're studying your patterns, what you know about who you are, so that when you are setting goals, whether it's the goal itself or even the process of getting to the goal, you are recognizing, oh, I might need to do this differently. I might need this visual reminder that says, okay, do this or don't do that, right? So we have to scan and see how can we make these shifts so that we can get to where we want to go. So I appreciate you sharing that. And I also want to add, based off of the last thing you said, there is a form of accountability that you are giving yourself. So when I come to those weekly accountability meetings with Hugo, and we can share the link for Startup Life Support in the comments. So, hey, maybe one of your goals next year, for those of you watching, is that you need to get into a group where you are accountable to someone else.
mhm.
Maybe being just accountable to yourself, maybe you need a little practice first with being accountable to other people. And
Yeah,
then over time, as you've built some habits, you can just be accountable to yourself. But we'll share the link in the comments. But I know for me, that's one of the things in the accountability group, is it's so much about progress. It's not
yeah.
about perfection at all. I've actually gotten to the point where when I set a goal, for certain things. So, for example, exercise. If I said I wanted to exercise 5 days out of the week, if I do 80%, I consider that the goal was met, because
Yes.
it's not about the perfection of getting all 5 days. It's about, oh, I took a step and then I
Yep.
took another step and then I was doing that consistently. So I really appreciate you sharing like your thought process of how you made that decision.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now, is my background noisy for y'all?
It is. And I was going to give you a shout out because when you talked about, investing in yourself and hiring people, you hired some folks to come clean your house to free you up to be able to do work like this. They just happened to show up at a time we didn't want them to be here.
Yeah, y'all, they are literally vacuuming right outside the door right now. So if you hear the noisiness, that is part of, again, like Aisha just said, like we're so used to doing everything ourselves. So then, hey, the convenience of it doesn't necessarily all work out as we had hoped. So so I'm gonna,
Nobody died because they heard
and
the
nobody died. Nobody died. It's all good. Um, I want to share one of the lessons that I learned. This was a very important lesson for me this year. Um, so if you all have ever heard of the book "Are You My Mother"? Have you ever heard of that book?
Yes,
It's a children's
yes,
book.
yes.
God gave me this analogy this year. In the book "Are You My Mother," there is a bird, a little baby bird, and the little bird gets separated from its mom at the very beginning of the book. And so it spends the whole book going to all these different animals asking, "Are you my mother?" And so the bird is trying to figure out which one of you can give me what I need. And
Mm,
I feel like in life, in business, in leadership, we are looking at other people and the
yeah.
progress that they made. We're wishing that we had what they had. We're wishing that we're at the point that they're at, and we can find ourselves in a point of desperation, and people can feel that when you come
Mhm.
to them, and you're looking to them for answers that they cannot give you. And so you come to them like, are you the answer to my question? Do you have the answers that I need? And I feel like for the longest time as an entrepreneur, I have had that spirit of, are you my mother? Do
Mm,
you have the answers that I need? And I feel like this year I was finally able to let that go.
yes.
And I was finally able to recognize that this is my journey and
Mhm.
this is how it looks. And I can either constantly resist that this is my journey and always feel stretched and sad and disappointed, or I can surrender and
Yeah.
I can just enjoy the ride. I can enjoy the journey. And so I feel like that has been the biggest lesson that I learned this year. And it has shifted how I see myself. It has shifted how I approach other people. And it
Mhm.
has helped me really appreciate what God is doing in my life and the
Yes.
timing of my life versus
Yes.
somebody else. So that's been my biggest lesson
Ooh.
for 2024.
Ooh, that's so powerful.
Yeah, yeah.
Ooh, that's
So
ooh.
so if you're watching this and you feel that desperation in yourself, I just want to encourage you. They don't have the answer. They really don't. They really don't have the answer for you. And so just be willing to trust the timing of your own life and the path that God has you on. And you're going to get there. It may not be in the timing that you expected, and it may not look nothing like what you thought, but you're going to get there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, that's a whole word right there. The doors of the church are open.
So I think we have a few minutes, we have a few more minutes left, Aisha.
Okay.
And I don't want to cram anything else into this time. What I would love to do, so you all have your guide. Hopefully, you have downloaded the guide. I'll share the link again for you if you have not had a chance to take the time to do this for yourself. Um, and I just want to encourage you to take the time, like give yourself another hour to just sit with these questions and answer these questions. But Aisha, I want to give you an opportunity. Like, what is stirring on the inside of you that you would want to share about this process?
Yeah, I'm just looking at this again, and I love the way that you've laid out these questions and the specific questions that you asked.
Hmm.
One thing I will say, just as you're going through that process, to make sure that you are coming into these questions without self-judgment. So if I look at this question and she's asking, what has held you back? Don't look at that from a standpoint of, okay, this is how I failed, or beating yourself up because you didn't get it right, but really understanding what those blocks are that you need to get through. And when you develop that level of self-awareness around it, and then figure out, now what are the tools that I need to make sure that these hurdles don't follow me into 2025, if I can care, if I can control that. And even if they do, they don't have the same power over me that perhaps they have right now. And so it isn't, she isn't asking the questions for you to judge yourself, but so that you can figure out, now what do I do about it? What tools do I need? And then once you figure out what tools you need, use them. Use your tools on a regular basis. Don't just think to yourself, I ought to be able to figure this out. I ought to be able to do better. Figure out what you need and get it and use it. And that is going to completely change the way that you going through this process looks at the end of next year, and whether or not you're celebrating or feeling like you failed. And that has nothing to do necessarily even with the goals on the paper, but you'll be able to say, I know I did what I could in my power to be able to focus on these things. And then the other question that you have there, what propelled me forward? Asking yourself as you set the goals for 2025, what is going to propel you forward with these set of goals? Because I seriously sat back and thought to myself, well, you know what? I could just go get a job and just be Auntie Aisha and take the girls on wonderful trips. And like, I don't need to be out here in these streets doing all these things. I don't need people to know me or recognize me or anything else. Let me just live my little normal life. Now, God already told me I didn't create you to be a regular person, so I know that's not even an option. But when I take that step back and ask me what's propelling me forward, what is going to keep me from slinking back into just wanting to be that downsized version. And that doesn't mean, oh, I got to be famous or I got to be making some amount of money. It is, I am walking in what God put me here to do. That's all it means. And that looks different for everybody. But knowing what it is that's going to propel you forward. And for me, it is, looking at the trajectory of my family, looking at, wanting to be in a certain position financially to give my, the younger people in my life certain experiences, to spend time with family members that are out of state. My son is out of state now. I don't want to see him twice a year. He has a girlfriend. I hope they get married soon. I hope they have some grandbabies for me. And I want to be able to see my grandchildren all the time. So just making sure that I'm in a place in life where I can have those experiences that I want. And that is the thing that is going to propel me forward when it gets hard, when I get disappointed. Remembering the why behind it is just so critical.
Okay, thank you for that. That I feel like that is a really great way for us to wrap up our 2024 year in review. I would love to share Aisha in the comments. Do we have them go to startuplifesupport.com?
Well, I would tell you, here's the exciting thing. So it's startup life support right now. It is completely shifting for 2025 to focus on both personal and professional goals. It isn't just going to be for entrepreneurs. And so if you just, wherever you're watching this, I'm tagged in this. Send me your email address, and I will make sure that you have the information on how you can plug into, the new structure that we're providing that is going to support you in ways that never even existed for us before.
Absolutely. So whether you all are going to be watching this on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, if you comment, or even if you send me a private message on LinkedIn, or send Aisha a private message on LinkedIn, or even over on Facebook, if you send us a private message, we will make sure that you get the information that you need so you can stay connected, so you can have a sense of accountability where your goals are concerned. And I just want to thank Aisha for being a part of this with me. I always love this, and it helps me so much. It helps remind me of the value of the work that I'm doing, just having the reflection back, just taking the time to stop and do that. Thank you, Dr. Marita, for joining us, Dr. Kenny, for
Hey.
joining us, to be a part of this. Thank you, Sheila, for joining us. I know that you come in. I saw that Saskia commented as well. Just thank all of you for
Yeah.
joining us for this. And if you haven't already, again, I encourage you to download the year in review guide and take time to complete it between now and the end of the year. Your future self is going to thank you for it.
Mm.
And Aisha and I are cheering you all on as you step into 2025 with confidence and clarity. All right, y'all. We'll see y'all next year.
Bye.
All right. Bye, everybody.